James Cleverly is certainly not Suella Braverman. He is much more moderate in his language, careful in the way he speaks and articulates his views. He obviously has to do that, has had to do that as Foreign Secretary. You need to be diplomatic in that role. And so I think you're going to see quite a reset, particularly that is needed with the police, who I think, felt very bruised by Suella Braverman's comments over the past week or so. She stepped over a line quite clearly. And I think James Cleverly, the first thing he'll be doing is meeting Sir Mark Rowley, the Met Commissioner, and other policing leaders this week. And I'm sure he will be trying to reset that relationship. I think that's really important. I just want to say one thing, though, Vanessa, about the demonstrations. I mean, you had sort of outright thuggery, football hooliganism type of the worst type on the EDL march, the counter protest. That was quite clear from the scenes that we saw there. They were just out for a fight. They wanted a punch up, etc. Then you saw the pro-Palestine demonstration, which was largely peaceful, but there were some absolutely vile chants and banners and so on. And the police will come after those people. We have seen this before. You can't necessarily go in and arrest someone in the middle of a big protest with hundreds of people around you, because that can inflame things and make things worse. But they've got the footage. They've got some very good images of the people that they want to trace. They will find those people, and I'm sure those people will be prosecuted.
And is there any significance in the sheer amount of disruption that a march or a protest causes? Does that contribute to whether the police decide maybe it should be refined, there should be fewer people allowed to do it, or it shouldn't be allowed to happen every single weekend? Because I just so happens that I live quite close to central London, and I would say that life near where I live and going into the West End of London and around about Westminster and all those kinds of areas is really severely attenuated by these marches. I mean, all the tube stations were closed for quite a long way around. I think they said it was for engineering works. I think people suspected it might not be that. The roads were blocked. There were huge coaches coming down from the north and other places, just clogging up everything. Some of the coaches were double parked across the road, and they were still there about 7 p.m. in the evening as people finally wended their way back from the march. So roads were closed, roads were blocked. The traffic was absolutely, impenetrable. You couldn't go anywhere. And lots of people, particularly people in the Jewish community, of course, were frightened to leave their homes. They were worried about what they might encounter when they came out of synagogue. So there was a general kind of, slowing up of the works of a whole certain part of the capital city on Saturday. I don't wish to exaggerate it, but that is how I perceived it. Very hard to get around anywhere at all. Couldn't use the tube, couldn't really drive the car. People felt nervous about leaving their houses and walking around. Bits of the centre where you couldn't even think of going to because you couldn't get there or get out again. Is that relevant, Hugo?
Well, certainly...
sorry, let me ask Hugo this, because I haven't asked. Yeah. Does that matter?
Not at all. Yes, of course it matters. And long term, it definitely matters. A few weeks on the trot, I think that's something a democratic society has to put up with. If this becomes a regular thing, then of course you need some kind of legislation to deal with that. I would say the job of a Home Secretary when it comes to things like protests, community relations are difficult. Particularly at the moment, community relations are difficult between Muslim communities and Jewish communities, very heightened over Israel and Gaza. The job of a Home Secretary, the job of a government, is to take these down, not sort of push them up. I think what Suella Braverman was guilty of doing was sort of inflaming tensions further. That's why she's gone. As to whether we're going to continue to see protests like this every single week from now on, I think it's probably unlikely. I'd imagine they'll sort of begin to ebb away.